Hello and welcome to the Bhagavatam. This is where we explore enlightenment through divine love. And the question we have for you today is, can a good person do horrible deeds? And can an evil person become good or even saintly? Are good and evil personality flaws? Are they etched into the fabric of our being, or are they choices we make that we can undo at any time? See, very often it happens that we label people as being a certain way. We think of certain people as being bad or ugly or evil or horrible. And this can apply to a certain religion, this can apply to a certain individual, it can apply to a race. It's just, it's all over the world, this kind of thinking, where we slot people, where we box people into a particular segment, shall we say. We even do this with our jails and our system that we have, our criminal system. And what we do is we lock people up as if that's going to change anything, as if that's going to solve anything. And then they come back with the same tendencies and the same problems. We don't help them, we don't reform them, we don't give them the support they need. We just lock them up. It's the most stupid thing I've ever seen. But in an advanced or evolved society, we would look at how can we help these people. And unfortunately, our system doesn't give care about stuff like that. Now, the Bhagavad Gita talks about the divine and demonic natures, that these are qualities that we have accumulated or that we have developed in the course of our lives. And very often you'll see people who develop qualities like a sociopath or a psychopath or certain other such qualities. It has a lot to do with their upbringing. And it's not everything. It's not all nature or nurture. It's also karma. Because a lot of times they're coming in with certain karmic qualities, some of which could be changed and some of which will not change. It's very important to be able to discern that. Where change is possible, we need to be able to try and make a difference. And where change is not possible, we need to be discerning. And we need to step away if that's the case. Now, the truth is, all of us have divine and demonic qualities, good and bad qualities. We have them all within us. And they come out under various situations. Some so-called good religious people will treat people of a different color or religion horribly. We saw that in the oppression of the Jews and Romans towards Christ. Then we saw that same oppression turned around, where the Christian Crusaders and colonialists and slave owners took people from all over the world and either used them or abused them or took everything they had from them and became the oppressors. Now we see the same mirror of hate in the Jihadis who want to kill all non-Muslims. It's happened everywhere. The vicious cycle of evil and hate is endless. Again and again, the oppressed becomes the oppressor. And yet these are not the actions of a religion or nation. They are the actions of individual leaders and those who come under their influence and follow them. See, the truth is, everyone is influenced by someone or something. It could be a charismatic leader, a twisted interpretation of religion, or a social norm. I've had similar things happen to me, and I've had to step away from all of that and realize the power of brainwashing, of how we can get influenced by some charismatic leader and not have our senses and our mind about us. But this is happening at every level. It's happening in politics. It's happening in society. It's happening with the way we think, in our social groups and social media. The ultimate influencer lies within our own mind, which thinks it knows right from wrong, good from evil. If we can be influenced one way, can we be influenced the opposite way? I've seen it many times. When I was a monk living in the ashram, I saw saintly, pure devotees getting contaminated by power, fame, wealth, and then they believed they could do no wrong, except that they were totally messed up and they didn't even realize it. And I've seen criminals, drug addicts, prostitutes, and people of all so-called horrible situations in life, change their ways and be totally reformed. Change requires choice, and choice needs free will. It will take many lifetimes to realize the error of our ways, or it may take a moment. When it happens, our eyes light up and the darkness slips away and we emerge into the light on a path of self-reformation. But that is only the beginning. We have to stick with our decision. We have to make sure that the subtle influence of Maya or illusion do not sweep us on another version of darkness, because it's very subtle. The influences of this illusion or this Maya or this devil, if they want to call it that, can sweep us away in all kinds of disguises, in all kinds of subtle ways. In other words, we have to be alert, observant, and careful. The most powerful tool I found in the spiritual toolbox is humility. And when we recognize our own insignificance, our fallibility, means that we make mistakes and we do stupid things, our worthlessness, and we then surrender to the divine or God, then the ego's tendency towards pride and vanity and arrogance can no longer be influenced by the darkness of any evil force. To me, that's the most important thing. Humility, and from that humility, surrender. Join us as we explore some of these topics through the ancient wisdom of the Vedas, which were revealed to us by the wisest people who ever lived on this planet. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about a few personalities. Now, today's episode is actually a continuation of a whole lot of very dramatic things that we talked about last time. This Bhagavatam that we're reading from is like a tremendous epic, full of amazing stories, histories. Actually, they're referred to as itihasya. Thus it happened, meaning these are actual events on actual realms that are different than ours necessarily. They're not necessarily from the earth. They're from other planets, from other realms, from other dimensions. And while it might seem supernatural or bizarre or unacceptable or illogical to some of us, I ask you to look for the wisdom that is present here, and to enjoy some of the stories that are there, which can enlighten us about so much about human character and human qualities and the lessons that we can learn from even the greatest of people. So today we're going to talk about one such person, Indra. Now keep in mind, we've been discussing this in the last episode as well. So if you haven't heard that, please go ahead and catch up with that as well. And then we're going to talk a little about Vishnu, quite a bit actually. And then we're going to talk about another lead character, Vritrasura. Vritrasura is a demonic character, and Indra is known to be the king of the heavenly planets. So I'll give you a little summary of what we talked about last time. In the last episode, we had narrated the story of how Indra, the king of the demigods. Now, the demigods are beings who are in charge of the various aspects of the universe. Okay, so whether it's rain or fire or water. I know some of the modern day monotheistic religions don't buy into any of that. That's fine. They're welcome to have their ideologies. The fact of the matter is, if you understand that there is a God, and that God is not doing everything himself. I mean, no CEO runs the company single-handedly. You'd be crazy to do that. You have a big company like Apple or Google or whatever. You have tons of people there managing the show for you. The CEO doesn't go down into the trenches and do all the stuff that has to be done. And why wouldn't it be the same with God? 8 billion people on this planet and billions more on other planets. Who's going to manage all of that? And there's actually trillions of planets in this universe. So Indra is known to be the king of the demigods, of all the devas. They manage the affairs of the universe. And there's talk of Indra in many other cultures, in many other countries. And one day I'll do a video separately just on that. But for now, so Indra had become very arrogant and proud of his position. After all, he was the king of the universe. And he ended up insulting his guru, Brihaspati. Now, details again you can watch in the previous episode. But when Brihaspati walked away, Indra realized his folly and he tried to follow him and find him, but Brihaspati disappeared. At this point, Indra became very troubled, recognized how stupid he'd been, how foolish he'd been, how arrogant he'd been, and was feeling terrible for himself. And so were all the other devas, the demigods around him. They eventually found another Brahmin, a priest, who could help them with some of these things that they need to do. His name was Vishwarupa, and they accepted him as guru. Now, during this whole time, when the devas had become distracted and weak, the asuras, the opposite side, the demons, seeing this, attacked them. And this is the kind of thing we often see happen even in our politics, as we see one country getting distracted by some affairs, or maybe taking it easy, not being so on top of things, and then suddenly the other side comes in and attacks. We saw this happen between Israel and Hamas recently, and it's a very similar situation. So the asuras, demons, they attacked. Now, who are these demons? We're not talking about some characters like you see in Hollywood movies. We're talking about another race of people that believed not in spiritual growth and evolution, but that believed in enjoyment. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. It's pretty much the case of a lot of people out here on this earth as well. They believe that to enjoy life is the whole point of life. There is no other thing. There is nothing beyond this life. There is no God in control. There is no need for us to surrender to anybody or to believe in anything. So these are known as asura. Asura means that they are anti-theist or atheist. They are referred to in the Vedas as demons. Now you may think, oh my God, they're normal human beings. Come on, get over it. That's too much. That's too extreme. But you see, it's a question of the path we're following. The path we're following, if it is not towards elevating our consciousness, then it will only lead to a degradation. Right now, they might appear to be normal human beings. Where that path leads them in future lifetimes, in which places they go to, what kinds of situations they land up in, is all going to be shaped by their actions right now. So just take this for what it is. The asuras, or the demons, seeing that the devas, the more divine beings, had become weak, attacked them. Vishwarupa then gave to the devas a powerful mantra or prayer known as Narayan Kwach, by which no demon could attack them. When Indra noticed that Vishwarupa was also favorable to the asuras, the demons, when Indra saw this, that Vishwarupa is supposed to be helping us, the demigods, and he's also favorable to the demons, my gosh. So Indra killed him. And this was a Brahmin, he was a priest, he was a very highly evolved person. And Vishwarupa's father wasn't going to take this sitting down. So in his anger and wanting revenge for his son, the father performed ceremonies and sacrifices to bring forth an extremely powerful demon called Vritrasura. I'll show you the spelling in a moment. No one could defeat this gigantic demon who seemed unconquerable. But no other recourse was there. The devas turned to Vishnu and he showed them a way out. They were to ask the sage Dadichi to give up his body. Give up his body? Like, really? Imagine I being asked to give up your body, right? For a greater cause. Just die. But Dadichi was very detached. He didn't care. Anyway, they were supposed to ask the sage Dadichi to give up his body, and from his bones, Vishwakarma, the architect of the devas, was to construct a weapon, a thunderbolt. Vishnu would then invest this weapon with his supreme power and strength, which no one could defeat. Indra, the king of heaven, the heavenly planets, then attacked Vritrasura and a great battle ensued. So that's where we left off last time. Now, many hundreds and thousands of asuras, the demons, resisted the armies of King Indra, which even death personified could not easily overcome. Roaring tumultuously and fearlessly like lions, these invincible asuras or demons, all dressed in golden ornaments, gave pain to the demigods with their weapons. They attacked from different directions and scattered all the chiefs of the demigod armies. As the stars in the sky cannot be seen when covered by dense clouds, the demigods, being completely covered by arrows falling upon them one after another, could not be seen. In other words, they were blanketed with arrows. The asuras were extremely powerful. The demigods, acting quickly, cut the weapons of the asuras into thousands of pieces in the sky. The asuras, or demons, began showering mountain peaks, trees, and stones upon the demigods, devas. I'm going to use the word deva and asura, if you don't mind. So deva refers to the demigods and asura refers to the demons. Now, again, please understand, I want to be very clear, we are not talking of demons as in the Hollywood version or something like that, or even some religious version. There's a whole different meaning to that here, as I've already explained. So deva and asura, all right? The asuras began showering mountain peaks, trees, stones, all kinds of big, heavy things upon the deva soldiers. But the devas were so powerful and expert that they nullified all these weapons by breaking them to pieces in the sky as before. All the efforts of the asuras against the devas, who were favorably situated under the protection of Krishna, were futile. So all the devas were actually very divine beings. They were under the protection of God, who we call Krishna or Vishnu or Narayan. So they were under his protection. And so no matter what these asuras or non-godly beings did, they could not destroy the devas. Leaving aside their leader, now so these asuras, they left aside their leader even in the very beginning of the fight. They decided to flee because all their prowess had been taken away by the enemy. Now you saw the picture of Vritrasura earlier. He was this huge, powerful demon that had arisen from the sacrifice created by the father, right? The very aggrieved father. And now Vritrasura was a person of principles, actually, and you're going to find out a lot more about him. He was truly a great-minded hero. And when he saw all the other asuras fleeing, he smiled and asked them not to run away. He said, all living entities who have taken birth in this material world must die. No one can be saved from death. There are two ways to meet a glorious death, and both are very rare. One is to die after performing mystic yoga, by which one can control the mind and the prana, the living force, and die absorbed in thoughts of God. The second is to die on the battlefield, leading the army and never showing one's back, meaning never running away from the battlefield. The cowardly commanders of Vritrasura, these were the asuras, were so disturbed by fear that they could not accept his words. As they fled, the devas attacked them from the rear, and the asuras scattered in all directions. Vritrasura was very grieved and angry. He told the devas, what is the benefit of killing such enemies from behind while they are running in fear? One who considers himself a hero should not kill an enemy who is afraid of losing his life. If you have patience in the core of your heart, if you are not ambitious for sense gratification, please stand before me for a moment. Come deal with me, he said. Not these guys who are running away. What's the point of attacking them? There's no honor in that. There's no glory in that. Right? They're cowards. There is no honor in in tackling a coward. Come fight with me, he was saying, basically. You see, he was a man, you understand from this very statement and from the way he was guiding the asuras that Vritrasura had a lot of character. He was a highly intelligent and highly evolved person, as we'll get to learn. Vritrasura's voice was like a lion's tumultuous roar. The earth trembled with his great strength, and he trampled the demigods beneath his feet on the battlefield the way a mad elephant tramples hollow bamboos in the forest. Indra then threw at Vritrasura one of his clubs, which are extremely difficult to counteract. Actually, he had a club. Vritrasura caught it in his left hand and then struck the head of Indra's elephant with that club, making a tumultuous sound on the battlefield. Indra's elephant, Airavat, struck with the club like a mountain struck by a thunderbolt, felt great pain, and spitting blood from his broken mouth, was pushed back 14 yards. In great distress, the elephant fell with Indra on his back. Vritrasura, following the principles of Dharma, refrained to strike Indra in this condition. Now, he could have, right? He was an asura. He didn't actually believe in all this Dharma and all these codes of conduct. He would have done anything he felt like. But Vritrasura was a person of character and principles. So he let Indra get up. Indra then touched the elephant with his nectar-producing hand. Remember, Indra is a very highly evolved being. So he touched the elephant with his nectar-producing hand, thus relieving him from his pain and healing his injuries. Then both of them stood up ready to fight. So here's the scene with Vritrasura. Let's see if we have some more. Okay, yeah, we got some more here. Vritrasura attacking Indra. Indra's there with his elephant having been knocked down. You see how small Indra and his elephant are on the right. Oh, we have some more. Indra on his elephant. All right. Vritrasura seeing the killer of his brother. Now remember, Vritrasura was born from the father, right, of Vishvarupa. Vishvarupa had been killed by Indra. So Vritrasura thought of himself as the brother of Vishvarupa, although not brother by birth, by birth or by the same mother. He was born out of a sacrificial ceremony, and he was. So Vritrasura seeing the killer of his brother, Indra, holding a thunderbolt and desiring to fight, he laughed sarcastically and said, "He who has killed a Brahmin," see, killing of a Brahmin was considered absolutely heinous. Killing of a priestly person or a highly evolved person was considered heinous. It was considered horrible. It was like the worst of things you could do. So Vritrasura is saying, this is the demon guy, he's saying, he who has killed a Brahmin, who has killed his own spiritual master, who has killed my brother, is now, by good fortune, standing in front of me, face to face as my enemy. O most abominable one! When I pierce your stone-like heart with my trident, I shall be freed from the debt to my brother. Only for the sake of living in the heavenly planets, you killed my elder brother, who was a self-realized, sinless, qualified Brahmin, who had been appointed your chief priest. He was your spiritual master. But although you entrusted him with the performance of your sacrifices, you later mercilessly severed his heads the way one butchers an animal. Indra, you are bereft of all shame, mercy, glory, and good fortune. Now I shall pierce your body with my trident, and after you die, with great pain, even fire will not touch you. Only the vultures will eat your body. So he's wanting to give him a horrible death. The thunderbolt you carry to kill me has been empowered by the prowess of Vishnu and the strength of Dadichi's austerities. So he knew all that. Why don't you hurl it at me? Although your attack upon me with your club was certainly useless, the thunderbolt will not be useless. You have no doubts about this. By your thunderbolt, I shall be freed of material bondage and shall give up this body and this world of material desires. Fixing my mind upon the lotus feet of Vishnu, in his form as Lord Shankarshan, I shall attain the destination of great sages like Narad Muni. So you see, what you're learning out here is this highly demonic person had already begun to change from within. Although he was in the body and in the character and in the role of a demonic person, of a very hateful person, a very angry person, nevertheless, his heart had already begun to change. And he was like, you know what, that thunderbolt you've got, Vishnu, it was given to you by the blessings of Vishnu. And if you kill me with that thunderbolt, I too will get liberation. So please, come on. What are you doing throwing clubs at me and stuff like that? I can deal with all that. That thunderbolt. It will free me from material bondage, and I shall give up this body and this world of material desires. It will give me liberation. I will then be able to fix my mind upon God, and I shall attain what great sages like Narad Muni attain. When one possesses material opulence in this universe, so this is again Vritrasura, the demonic guy talking. When one possesses material opulence in this universe, his possessions naturally increase his enmity, anxiety, material agitation, pride, and belligerence. Thus one goes through much endeavor to increase and maintain his possessions, and he suffers great unhappiness when he loses them. So you can see the level of his understanding about the nature of this world. You can also see his wisdom. You can see that he has not just arrived at a place of spiritual growth without understanding, because you can't get there without understanding. It's not a matter of faith or belief. It's a matter of really getting it so that you truly become detached from this world, because only when you're detached from the world can you then step into the spiritual world. It doesn't happen that you're in this world fully attached to everything of this world, and then you still want to be able to go to some heaven or God or whatever. You're not going to go there. You're not going to make it. The mercy of the Vritrasura continues. The mercy of the Supreme Being cannot be attained by those who aspire for material gain. Listen carefully. The mercy of the Supreme Being or God cannot be attained by those who aspire for material gains. Take that in. O my Lord, O Supreme Personality of Godhead, O Lord of my life, may I again become a servant of your pure devotees, so that my mind may always think of your transcendental attributes. My words always glorify these attributes, and my body always engage in the loving service of your Lordship. This is being said by Vritrasura, this demonic creature. How strange it is, right? When imagine seeing a person who is highly, a big criminal, a mafia don, someone who is a serial killer, being transformed in this way. Imagine that kind of transformation taking place. Clearly he met with some people. Clearly he had some great association. Clearly he had some deep realization that has changed him totally. And this can and does happen. Vritrasura continues, O my Lord, he now is praying actually to God. He says, I do not desire to go to the heavenly planets or be the supreme ruler on the heavenly planets or the lower planetary systems. I do not desire to be master of the powers of mystic yoga, nor do I want liberation if I have to give up your lotus feet. In other words, more than even liberation from the miseries of this world, I want you. Think of what is greater. A lot of people seek liberation. They want to become free from the cycle of birth and death. But that's a selfish desire. But when you say to God, I want only you, I don't care whether you free me from this world, whether you free me from the cycle of birth and death, whether you take away my suffering, whether you take away my problems, I don't care. I want you and only you. I love you. And I want to devote my life to you. I want to surrender to you, to your will, whatever that is. I'm here. I'm yours. That's the level of the highest devotees of God, the highest lovers of God. He continues, O lotus-eyed Lord, as baby birds that have not yet developed their wings always look for their mother to return and feed them, as small calves tied with ropes await anxiously the time of milking, when they will be allowed to drink the milk of their mothers, or as a morose wife whose husband is away from home always longs for him to return and satisfy her in all respects, I always yearn for the opportunity to render service unto you. O my God, O my Master, I am wandering through this material universe as a result of my karmic activities. Let my mind, my consciousness, and everything I have be attached only to you. We can learn so much from Vritrasura's prayer here, so much. This is what happens next. We're going to see and hear the rest of this instance. This is Indra and Vritrasura. So, desiring to give up his body, Vritrasura considered death in the battle preferable to victory. He vigorously took up his trident and with great force attacked Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. Vritrasura, the great hero of the demons, whirled his trident, which had points like flames of a blazing fire. And as he hurled it at Indra, his trident resembled a brilliant meteor. Roaring and exclaiming loudly, he said, "O sinful one, O Indra, I will kill you." King Indra, unafraid, cut to pieces the trident with his thunderbolt, and then he cut off one of Vritrasura's thick, powerful arms. Undaunted, Vritrasura angrily approached King Indra and struck him on the jaw with an iron mace. He then struck the elephant that carried Indra. Once again, Indra dropped his weapon, the thunderbolt, from his hand. He was practically defeated and ashamed. He dared not pick up his weapon again. Because, the weapon had fallen away. Now he'd have to go and pick it up, and it felt like he felt so defeated here. Do you ever have that happen in your life, where the obstacle is so great, where you lose all your weapons, all your tools, all your ways of dealing with the problem, and that you feel overwhelmed, and that you give up, and you feel helpless? It happens to all of us. And yet, Vritrasura is going to continue. He says, no. Vritrasura says, encourages Indra, and he says, hey, come on. It's not time to give up the battle here. Take up your thunderbolt and kill your enemy. This is not the time to lament your fate. No one is guaranteed of always being victorious except the original enjoyer, the supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. So let's read that again. No one is guaranteed of always being victorious, right? In any game, in any sport, in any battle, no one is guaranteed success. But except for when it comes to God, when that supreme being, that supreme personality of Godhead, Bhagavan, when he decides to do something, he is always victorious. He, Vritrasura continues, is the cause of creation, maintenance, and annihilation. He creates, he maintains, and he destroys, and he knows everything. On the other hand, we, belligerent subordinates, are dependent, obliged to accept material bodies, and are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. Again, great wisdom here. He refers to himself as belligerent subordinates. It's true, isn't it? We're all belligerent human beings. We think we're so great. We think we're so powerful. We think we know so much. We think we're so smart. We argue, we fight, we quarrel because we think we're right. But basically, we're just belligerent. We're actually fools making a lot of noise. Because in every way, we are dependent, as he says. We're dependent on everything. We're dependent on the air. If there was no air, we would die immediately. If our hearts didn't breathe, we would, or didn't pump, didn't work, we would die immediately. If our temperature went up just a few degrees, we'd die. 10 degrees more, and boom, you're gone. Slight imbalance in your body, you're gone. Your lungs stop working, you're gone. Your liver, any part. And these are just parts of the body. Yet you and I and all of us long to live forever because we are of a different realm, of a different dimension. We are spiritual beings. We have no beginning and end. Death is foreign to us. Unhappiness is foreign to us. And when we come into this material body, we experience all these things that seem so unnatural and so unacceptable to us. And therefore we act as if, oh, I'm happy. Oh, I'm going to live forever. Oh, I'm never going to die. But that's not true. We're just deluding ourselves. We are, as he says, obliged to accept material bodies. We don't have a choice about it. We keep coming back one body at a time, one body at a time, sometimes as a human, sometimes as an animal, sometimes as an insect. There are 8,400,000 species according to the Vedas, out of which 400,000 are supposed to be of human type, and then there are the birds and insects. But we go through all of that to get to this human form of life, and this human form of life has a very specific purpose. That purpose is not to eat, drink, and be merry. That we did in the pig body, that we did in the dog body, that we did in all the different bodies we had. This human form of life was meant for us to evolve spiritually. And if we don't do that, you know how the saying goes, you don't use it, you lose it. So when we don't use our human body for what it was meant for, then that opportunity is taken away from us. And we go back into that cycle of birth and death in all the different species. If there is some spiritual stuff we've done, we come back. If we've really advanced spiritually, then we get to continue on that path. Because whatever progress you make spiritually is never lost. Krishna promises you that in the Bhagavad Gita. That all your spiritual progress, that is your eternal asset. That is your eternal wealth. That will go with you life after life. And it will bring you back. Just like you see in the case of Vritrasura now. He's in a demonic body, in a fierce, horrible form. And yet he has tremendous wisdom accumulated over different lifetimes. And now his time has come to seek liberation, to seek from the cycle of birth and death. And yet he wants God and only God. So he says here, as belligerent subordinates, as dependent, we are obliged to accept material bodies and are sometimes victorious and sometimes defeated. All our powers, strength, and intelligence are completely under his control and superintendence. Like puppets, all of us dance according to the desire of the Supreme Controller, the personality of Godhead. No one is independent. Now, that's a very controversial statement. I would say we are and we are not. It's a very confusing thing because God is not there as a puppeteer, making us dance according to his desires. He has set up the stage. He has set up the format of everything. And then it's our actions that are leading to reactions, which are leading to further actions, and so on and so forth. That part is on us. We have free will. At the same time, God is behind everything, and as such, one could say, is in charge of everything. He is the supreme controller. We're all trying to be controllers, but we can't control anything. Not really. We can control a few little things, a little business, some people, maybe even a country. But that's about it. You can't control your mind. If you can't control your mind, you can't control your breath, you can't control how long you're going to live, then you're not really in control. Because what kind of control is that then? For a limited time, you're not really in control. You're just faking it. You're trying to do this thing where you think you're powerful and give yourself this illusion, but really speaking, you have no power. A person who has no power over their mind has no power over anything or anyone. All of that is useless. So Vritrasura continues, foolish persons cannot understand the Supreme Being and think of themselves as supreme. They think they are born according to their karma and die due to material causes. In fact, the Supreme Godhead himself creates and devours the living beings through other living beings. Victory can only be attained by his mercy. Since everything is dependent on his will, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation. See, this is a very important part. Since everything is dependent on his will, one should be equipoised in fame and defamation, victory and defeat, life and death. happiness and distress. Thus one will remain in equilibrium without anxiety. One who knows that the soul is not bound by one state of mind. Okay, then the Vedas talk about the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance, three modes of material nature. These are the states of consciousness. I don't mean pure consciousness, the state of consciousness of our mind. But one who is not, the soul is not bound by these states of mind. If you're a person in the mode of goodness, that doesn't mean that you're on the level of your soul, no. Or in the mode of passion or ignorance, you're certainly disconnected from it. The soul is not bound by one state of mind. The soul is operating in a whole different realm, in a completely different level of consciousness. It is separate from everything that we're doing. The modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance are what determine how we're going to behave and what we're going to do. So he says here, the soul is simply an observer of the actions and reactions of these qualities, goodness, passion, and ignorance. And the soul should be understood, or rather all of this is understood by a liberated person. Such a person is not bound by their mind. Is not bound by their mind. Big question here for you. Are you bound by your mind, or are you free of your mind? Are you the slave of your mind and doing its beck and call and fulfilling its wishes and doing what it desires and what it wants? Or are you free from its demands? If you're honest, you'll probably say, no, I am the slave of my mind. I am the worshipper of my mind. I do whatever it tells me. It is my boss. I am its servant. This is in fact the reality. But a liberated person is one who has understood that I am, and now observes the actions of the mind and the reactions that it has to the world and does not fall into that trap. Such a person is liberated from the mind. And once you're liberated from the mind, you're liberated from the effects that the world has on you. Let's say somebody says something or does something or something happens. Doesn't make a difference. That person is equipoised, is in a state of equilibrium, in happiness and distress, in victory and defeat, in fame and defamation. Just referring to some of the things that Vritrasura said earlier. In all states, that person is the same. That is the meaning of he is not bound by his mind. Vritrasura then says, look at me, I have already lost my weapon and my arm. Indra had cut off his arm and destroyed his weapon, the trident. I am trying my best to fight. I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your helplessness and continue fighting. So now he's talking about something very important that Krishna talked about with Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, that is to fight because that's your duty. Because that's what you do, right? If you're a painter, then paint. If you're a potter, then make pots. If you're a speaker, then speak. If you're a fighter, then fight. So he says, I'm trying my best to fight. Even though I've lost my weapon and lost my arm, I am not at all morose, even under such adverse conditions. Therefore, you should give up your helplessness and continue fighting. He's encouraging him, just like Krishna was encouraging Arjuna. O my enemy, he says to Indra, consider this battle a gambling match in which our lives are the stakes, the arrows are the dice, and the animals acting as carriers are the game board. No one can understand who will be defeated and who will be victorious. It all depends on providence. Hearing the straightforward, instructive words of Vritrasura, King Indra took the thunderbolt in his hand and at the same time praised Vritrasura. I see, he says, Indra says, that despite your dangerous position, you are a perfect devotee of the Supreme Godhead. You have surmounted the illusions of this world and given up the demoniac mentality and become liberated as an excellent devotee. Asuras, or demons, are under the influence of the mode of passion. What a wonder it is that although you are an asura, you have adopted the mentality of a sura, or a devotee, or a deva, a lover of God. Vasudeva, who is always situated in pure goodness. So although as an asura, most asuras are under the mode of passion, you have become a devotee of, or a lover of God, of Vasudeva, who is situated in pure goodness. Pure goodness, Shuddha Sattva, is beyond goodness. One who is thus situated swims in the ocean of nectar. This is a beautiful point here. One who is thus situated, meaning as a lover of God, as a person who has surrendered themselves, swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of small puddles of water? So when you have got the ocean of nectar, when you have got the treasure house, the storehouse of wealth, of the greatest wealth of all, then what do you care about small petty things like material pleasures and material fame and material objects? One who has achieved that greatest sense of connection with God swims in the ocean of nectar. For him, what is the use of small puddles of water? Then, as a matter of duty, King Indra and Vritrasura continued fighting. Both of them were great fighters and equally powerful. Vritrasura whirled his iron club around, aimed it and threw it at Indra with his left hand. With his thunderbolt, Indra simultaneously cut to pieces Vritrasura's club and his remaining hand. Vritrasura, bleeding profusely, his two arms cut off, looked very beautiful, like a flying mountain whose wings have been cut to pieces. Vritrasura then began pounding the surface of the earth with his legs as if he were the Himalayas, the biggest mountains in the world, as if he were the Himalayas walking about. He came before Indra, and with his gigantic mouth he swallowed Indra and his elephant carrier like a big python. Indra was protected by the protective armor that Narayan or Vishnu, the Supreme Being, had given him. Thus he did not die within the demon's belly. Try to understand here. Vritrasura has swallowed Indra and his elephant whole. But because Indra had been given this protective armor, the Narayan Kwach, which we talked about last time, he did not die within the demon's belly. Instead, with his thunderbolt, he pierced through Vritrasura's abdomen and came out. He then cut off Vritrasura's gigantic head, but it took a long time. Indra's thunderbolt revolved around Vritrasura's neck with great speed, separating his head from his body. It took 1 complete year, 360 days. Then, at a suitable time, when the time was just right, Vritrasura's head fell to the ground. The demigods all over the universe celebrated the victory and prowess of Indra. They beat drums and showered him with flowers. As Vritrasura's soul, the living spark, left his body, he returned home, back to Godhead, and became an associate of the divine, of Lord Shankarshan. Now, after Vritrasura's death, all the demigods were happy and pleased and free from trouble, except for Indra. When Indra had killed Vishvarupa, a Brahmin, that was, remember the earlier story, he received extensive bad karma. Now, after killing Vritrasura, another Brahmin, he feared another karmic backlash. The rishis, or sages, offered to do a big Ashwamedha yagya, Ashwamedha sacrifice to the Supreme Godhead. By this ceremony, Indra would be freed from the karma for killing for whatever he had done. Even if he had killed the entire world, what to speak of killing a demon like Vritrasura? One who has killed a Brahmin, a cow, or even his father, mother, or guru can be immediately freed from all sinful reactions simply by chanting the holy name of Narayan, or Vishnu, or Krishna, as we saw in the case of Ajamil. Despite this reassurance, Indra began to suffer greatly. He saw his sinful reaction appearing we saw his sinful reaction appearing personified like a filthy old woman chasing him. All the limbs of her body trembled because she was afflicted with tuberculosis. Her body and garments were covered with blood. So he was seeing this whole image, this ghostly image of a being that was chasing him. It was basically his bad karma, his sinful reaction. As she breathed, her breathing was an unbearable fishy odor that polluted the entire street. She called to Indra, "Wait, wait!" Indra fled to the sky, but she was there too. She followed him wherever he went. Finally, he hid in the subtle fibers of the stem of a lotus in Lake Mansarovar. Indra remained in hiding for 1,000 years. Meanwhile, Nahusha ruled the heavenly kingdom in his place. Although Nahusha had knowledge, austerity, and mystic power, he became blinded and maddened by power and opulence. This happens. And he began to make undesirable proposals to Indra's wife with a desire to enjoy her. He was then cursed by a Brahmin and later became a snake. Now, Lord Vishnu's wife, Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, also lives in the lotus clusters of Mansarovar lake. While Indra was in that lake, he engaged in worshipping Vishnu, and Lakshmi protected him. That's it. His spouse, Vishnu and Lakshmi, are together. So Lakshmi protected him. Then by the influence of Rudra, that is Shiva's expansion, Indra's sins were diminished and he returned to the heavenly planets and was reinstated as king. The Brahmins then performed the Ashwamedha Yagya, the horse sacrifice, to please the Supreme Being and relieve Indra of his sins, as a fog is vanished by the brilliant sunrise. By understanding this incident, one is relieved of all sinful and karmic reactions. Therefore, the learned are always advised to read this narration. If one does so, one will become expert in the activities of the senses, his opulence will increase, his reputation will become widespread. One will also be relieved of all sinful and karmic reactions. He will conquer all his enemies, and the duration of his life will increase. Because this narration is auspicious in all respects, learned scholars regularly hear and repeat it on every festival day. All right, so with that, we're going to wind up for today. I'm going to take the questions. I'm going to stop the Bhagavatam here, and let's see what lovely questions we have. All right, Seely's got something. He says here, wow, such depth in the Vedic histories and activities among the characters within them. Like them, or on another level, here on earth, we go through similar trials, tribulations, and victories. You know, you're so right, Seely, that's actually what happens. These stories, these narratives are there to actually show us ourselves. They're like a mirror to us. We too go through these kind of situations. By putting them on a grand screen like this, on a grand platform like this, we get to examine ourselves. Sometimes when you tell someone directly, you know, what their problem is and where they're wrong, they don't want to see it. But the Vedas use a very interesting technique, that of narrative. By giving the narrative and stories of different beings at different times in different places, they get us to see ourselves. So the whole value of these narratives is that it's not about believing or not believing. It's about seeing where is the similarity with me? And what can I learn from here? And how can I better myself? And that's why I made that point for today, is that can someone who has done all kinds of horrible things reform themselves? And that's what we're learning here. We've all done horrible things. I found this out in my work with past life regression. All of us have done terrible things in our past lives. At times we've been murderers, at times we've been psychopaths, at times we've done crazy stuff, rapists, plunderers. And yet, here we are today, changing our lives. Here we are reforming ourselves. Here we are practicing what it takes to be spiritual and how to elevate our consciousness and how to come closer to God. So there is much progress that we've made. And this is really the takeaway from this lesson here when we look at Vritrasura, who, although in a demonic kind of body, and with a task of destroying the highest of all devas, of all saint, of all evolved beings, was in fact teaching him how to live and how to actually be a great, it's not just worshiping God or having faith in God is not about just some belief system. It's how you live your life. It's concrete. It's very practical. It's very down to earth. Are we fractal images of these demigods and evil beings, even that of the Supreme Being? Yes, we are. We absolutely are. They are all, in one sense, within us. And I just don't want to be literal about it, but I want to take that as at a metaphorical level. There are elements of each of these characters that lie within us, and therefore your term fractal images of these demigods and evil beings and even of the Supreme Being. Absolutely right on. We have all of that within us. And it's really important to understand, like right now, you may not be that. Right now, you may not be engaged in some horrible activities, but keep in mind that this is not your first time around, that you've had thousands and thousands of lifetimes. And in those lifetimes, you've done all kinds of things. Right? The fact that you're now on a deeply spiritual path, the fact that you're now making a difference in your life and the life of others, tells you that you've come a long way. But that long way is now being shown to us through these different characters and personalities. And also what it takes to be able to truly evolve from here and what the road ahead looks like. The wars between these deities and the wars on earth are helping me be more grateful, from which grace dawns within my heart. Thank you. Thank you, Silly, for your questions and your observation. But you are absolutely right about this too. These wars are telling us about the wars that we're seeing on earth now. These wars that are happening here aren't the first time that human beings have been at war. They've been happening every few decades. In fact, not only every decade, every few decades, but they've been happening literally every year. Somewhere in the world there is war. Somewhere in the world people are being killed senselessly. The futility of all of this is just incomprehensible. There is no way to understand why human beings who are actually spiritual sparks of God, particles of the divine, would engage in such horrible, horrific acts as we see. Currently it's the Hamas, but earlier it was. Israel's done their own share of things, and the Muslims have done their share of things, and the Christians have done their share of things. It's been non-stop. You can pick on Hitler for him, but hey, no one is innocent. No one is free. They've all been doing horrible things, and many of them worse than the other. We take one character and make him out to be the big evil dude, but he's not the only one. Even the innocent ones are often evil. Even the good ones have actually been up to so much of troublemaking in this world. And it's just the nature of where we are. So if you find yourself becoming disillusioned, discouraged, please don't, because it is the nature of this world, this chaos, this conflict, this upheaval. It is the nature of this world. Our job is to stay centered within that which is our spiritual essence, to become identified with that soul and not with our mind and the reactions of the mind, and not with our emotions and not with our stories, but to really become centered more and more and more, to take these conflicts and use these situations to come closer to yourself and to God. Because just doing it, but it's not just about your soul, but it's also about connection with God. Because if you don't have a connection with a higher power, with something beyond yourself, then none of this makes any sense. Why are we here? Why are we going through this? But when you begin to see it, that this is a training ground, I've often referred to this as a Disneyland for souls. And these experiences, these adventures are similar to the kind of things you have in Disneyland, except it's being played out on a three-dimensional stage with life and death and torture and murder and horrible things going on. the Disneyland was created for kids. This world was created for adults. Well, kids, I guess, too. But for souls to experience so many different things. And hopefully, out of all those experiences, to gain a certain wisdom. These books are there to help us with that wisdom, because sometimes we don't get it. Sometimes we don't quite see the lessons that are there in front of us. So these books are there to help us with that. And ultimately, the point, if you want to get down to the bottom line of it all, is to recognize that we're nothing, and that everything around us, within us, is God. That divine being, whether you call him Allah or you call him Jehovah or you call him Christ or you call him Krishna, doesn't really matter. Who cares? What is important is that you understand the nature of that being, of that source. You want to call it the universe, use in a more impersonal way, fine, do that. But whatever it is, go deeply into it. Don't stay on the surface. Don't just, dabble. Because when you dabble, you don't get anywhere. Be an expert. Go dive in and completely realize. You want the impersonal realization? Go for that. Realize that. Begin to see that divine everywhere, in everything, in everyone. But if you want to go further, and you want to experience the source, the being behind the universe, then you can do that too. We're in the Bhagavatam right now, going gradually in that direction. As the Bhagavatam purifies our heart and our consciousness, it brings us to understanding the pastimes of Krishna. That's what will come in the 10th canto. We're waiting to get there. All right, for now, we'll wind up. And it's been wonderful having you here. Have a wonderful night, and I will see you next week. Take care. Hare Krishna.